And we're back. It's that time of week again, the time where we talk about the last WandaVision episode before the new one airs. And when I tell you that I wept during this one, yeah. I filmed every time I cry during this episode, so get ready for that footage, and also buckle in, because I think this is going to be a long episode, because I have some comic-splaining to do. Did you get that I Love Lucy reference? Was it too much? Without further ado, let's talk comics and television. Hello there. I just woke up not too long ago. I'm about to watch WandaVision, episode 8. I heard it's gonna make me cry. I've seen so many spoilers already, it's like impossible to avoid them. But I cry pretty easy these days. So, we're gonna put on some very non-waterproof mascara, and I'm gonna film myself every time I weep deeply, because the MCU likes to torture Wanda Maximoff, who doesn't deserve it. Yes, hello, I have eyelashes, they're blonde, now they're not. I've seen, like I said, a lot of spoilers, so I understand pretty much what's going on. I saw the deed to the house, so that's upsetting. But you know, we move, and we're gonna see exactly how upsetting it really is. I'm really going thick with the mascara for full impact. I hope to have giant black tears rolling down my face, because we've been in the pandemic forever now, and I'm looking to feel something, you know? Cutting my bangs just doesn't carry the allure that it used to. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name's Destiny Johnson. This is Nerd News with Destiny, and Wanda Maximoff is my favorite Marvel character. Now that we have that out of the way, I have been recapping every episode of WandaVision since it came out, and there's only one episode left after this one, so this time has been fun with you guys. However, boy, this one was a lot for me emotionally. And also, it's going to require a bit of comics explaining, so I hope that I don't bore you to death about it. But some really exciting stuff happened in this episode. And if you're new here, we break down these recaps in 3 little sections. The first one is what we know as a fact. That's things that this episode has established as a fact in this Marvel reality. And the next one is things we think we know, but we're not really sure about. So that's the section where we get to conjecture wildly and spread our conspiracy theories and use our little comic noodle brains to try and put together whatever the MCU is piecing together. All right. And then the last one, of course, is all the questions we have. And with one episode left, I have shockingly many. So, is the last episode gonna be like 2 hours long? All right, let's not delay any longer. Let's get into things we know from episode 8. So we open up to the Salem witch trials, where we see, of course, our new second favorite witch, Agatha Harkness, being maybe burned at the stake. Well, not burned, but basically she betrayed a coven of witches by seeking more information than she was supposed to have. Shocking, right? Well, they try to kill her, and it doesn't work. She seems to absorb their power. So she's an old witch. Okay. That's pretty in line with the comics too. Agatha Harkness is a super old witch, and she's very powerful. Apparently she has a bunny instead of a cat. She's a cat in the comics, but maybe they thought it was too maybe they thought that was too cliche. I mean, they dressed her up as a witch, so I feel like, where's the line? Agatha desperately wants to know how Wanda created Westview, because it's clear that Wanda is super powerful, because she is. She's the strongest Avenger. Fight me on that one. Literally fight me. At me. On Twitter. Anyway, she wants to know how Wanda created Westview. She wants to know how she was able to brainwash so many people. She wants to know how she was able to control everything. This sort of, she calls it magic on autopilot, right? And she's sort of fascinated by the way that Wanda was able to do this, because Agatha is an old witch, and she's a powerful witch, but even that power is beyond Agatha, right? And so she just wants to know what's up. And Agatha talks about all of this, sort of the mind control, and the next thing that we know is she brought in, as they call him, Pietro. I've been calling him Dollar General Pietro. Anyway, she brought in Pietro in order to spy on Wanda. So she was using her eyes and her ears through fake Pietro to watch Wanda and what was going on inside the house and all that sort of stuff. And as she's explaining this, she's using a cicada. I love cicadas. I have a cicada tattoo. It's right here. It's nice. I miss them. They make a lot of noise if you live in the South at nighttime. Anyway, cicadas are important because they signify, in a lot of different cultures and different religions, rebirth, right? The idea that you don't have to go through an entire metamorphosis, like sort of a caterpillar into a butterfly, that you can sort of stay as one complete being and become another complete being. So this is a great metaphor for Wanda and the Scarlet Witch, right? And we're going to get into that a little bit more later. But I just thought that was pretty interesting. A little rude to put a bug on somebody's face, but she killed a dog, so... We also now know that Wanda is engaging in witchcraft, a kind of witchcraft that other people can engage in, right? So this isn't necessarily her inherent mutant power, which we've kind of talked about that before. You know, the MCU does one thing, comics does another thing. We know this already, but it's just really interesting to have it confirmed that this is a studyable craft that Wanda is engaging in. And we learn this because Wanda tries to read Agatha's mind, and Agatha's like, sorry, you can't read my mind. I'm also a witch. And Wanda tries to use her powers inside of the lair where they are in Agatha's basement. And because Agatha has put some simple runes on the wall, Wanda's magic doesn't work, right? And that's a bummer. And also a surprise to Wanda and Agatha. Agatha's surprised that Wanda doesn't know these simple sort of witchcraft things, and Wanda is surprised to learn these simple witchcraft things. Interesting. It's really clear also with that Wanda doesn't understand the scope of her powers. She has no clue how she created Westview. And that sort of gets us to the crux of what this episode is, which is just taking a little stroll down memory lane through Wanda's trauma. Yikes. It's sad. Agatha has Billy and Tommy hostage in the lair, and that's why Wanda agrees to go on this sort of journey with Agatha to begin with, because Agatha threatens the boys. Of course, Wanda would do anything for her children. So she goes, and Agatha just plucks a little hair from Wanda's head, creates a doorway, and they step on through. But it's also worth noting that as you hear the children screaming and it pulls at your heartstrings, we only hear Billy screaming. Even when Tommy's off camera, he doesn't have any speaking lines. And I say justice for Tommy Shepard. I love Tommy. I think he's great. Agatha is sort of the stewardess of bringing Wanda through these many stages of her grief and trauma. And she says to Wanda, there are some amazing one-liners in this episode, let me tell you. The writing was really on point here. And she says to Wanda, you'd rather fall apart than chase your truth. And we're going to find out exactly what that means in the first door that we walk through. We're in Sokovia.
Nothing's even happening. She just went home and she's a little kid. Ooh. I'm fine, everything's fine.
And Wanda is a child. Sokovia, of course, the fake place that Marvel made up to make Wanda and Pietro from because they didn't have the rights to say their normal background, I guess. I think they still could have made them Romany, but it's fine. So we learn that Wanda is from humble but loving beginnings, right? So we get a picture of what her home life was as a child. She's so happy to see her family. And we sort of knew this. Like, they talked about this in Age of Ultron, and also earlier in WandaVision, they sort of talked about how their parents died and then they were radicalized by Hydra, right? But it was nice to see sort of a young Pietro running around, a young Wanda being sort of the calm but I don't know, sweet person that we know her to be. And then we met her parents who, they love their kids and they're trying to do the best for them, but you can kind of tell by the state of the apartment that maybe they're not super wealthy, a little meager in the funds area. But it doesn't matter because they clearly share a lot of love and they're having this cute sitcom night, and it was adorable. So Wanda gets to pick. She picks the Dick Van Dyke Show in a particular episode where they wake up and they realize that it's all a night, like been a bad dream, right? Which of course is probably Wanda's hope for what's been going on in her life right now. But you get a clearer picture of who she is and how she just loved sitcoms from very, very early on. They're practicing their English. It's all wholesome. And then, of course, their apartment is bombed. Pietro and Wanda survive. But the most interesting part of this, of course, is that, one, we know that they were bombed by Stark Industries stuff. Like, that's the whole reason why they joined Ultron. And they were going to fight the Avengers, and then they changed their mind, whatever. But this is the first time that Wanda uses her magic. And she does it unknowingly. And we only know that because Agatha says she uses a probability hex. And Wanda's like, no, I didn't. The bomb was a dud. It never went off. We were stuck there for 2 days, afraid. And, then people came and rescued us. But in reality, that was the first time that Wanda had flexed her witchcraft skills. And sort of Agatha called that out and sort of gave Wanda this, revelation that, at that time, she was, as she called her, a baby witch. Then, of course, we move from there to Hydra. So this was kind of a bummer in the episode for me, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it was really interesting because we get to see what we know to be true is that Wanda's powers really blossomed under the influence of the Mind Stone. And so it's sort of said that the twins were, experimented on by Hydra, and that's how they got their mutant powers, right? And there was this whole issue because there was the issue between Fox and Disney about who had the rights to mutants, blah, blah, blah. We kind of know how that goes. But what I was bummed about is that, well, Elizabeth Olsen is doing a great job being Wanda Maximoff. However, canonically, Wanda Maximoff is a woman of color. She's Romani and she's Jewish. And so I didn't love that they glossed over this so much. So basically, Agatha's like, so your parents are bombed and your response to that is joining an anti-freedom terrorism group, which is Hydra, of course, which is, of course, a thinly veiled metaphor for literal Nazis, right? So they have the canonical Jewish girl joining Nazis, and the only excuse that they give is, oh, we wanted to change the world. Not even they told us we were going to change the world. We wanted to change the world. We volunteered. I don't know. I didn't love that. And it's fine if you didn't take issue with it, but I was like, ugh, and she's so flippant about it. I didn't like it. It didn't sit well with me, but that's fine. We get to see a younger Wanda sort of walking in, looking malnourished and not great, because she's being mildly held hostage by Hydra under the guise of being a volunteer, right? Being told that she's gonna save the world and her country and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, she touches the Mind Stone. And we hear from the people who are conducting these studies that nobody has survived this before. And Wanda, of course, is the first one. And when she touches the Mind Stone, you can tell that something sort of cataclysmic happens, and she sees what you can assume is the Scarlet Witch. In sort of this vision of the Mind Stone. And it's up to interpretation, I guess, as to whether it's someone from her past or her in the future, and we'll get to more on that why. Very interesting, but we know that Wanda's powers were heightened by the Mind Stone. And we also learn in that instance that Wanda has been manipulating reality since that happened. We kind of see, if you remember those jump cuts that she made in WandaVision while Sword was watching the broadcast of WandaVision, she made a cut like that, but to Hydra's footage. So she'd been doing that for some time, many years, right? Which was pretty interesting. Then we move, of course, from Hydra back to the Avengers compound where we saw movies set here, right? During Civil War, when she was mildly being held captive. I mean, she was very comfortable and fine, but she was put on the compound to be babysat after what happened in Lagos, where she accidentally sort of exploded that building and killed some people. It was really sad. But in the movies, we see her have like a tender scene with Steve Rogers, who's like checking in on her because Pietro has died and she's sad. She has nobody. She's in a new country. But we see a very tender moment between her and Vision.
Look, the second that a WandaVision episode comes out, it's not safe to be on TikTok. But I'm on TikTok all the time. So this is the scene where I know Vision and Wanda are talking about grief. So get ready for the tears, fam.
It was quite an emotional scene, and of course I talked about the one-liners in this one, and a great one, of course, was, what is grief if not love persevering?
I've never experienced loss because I've never had a loved one to lose. But what is grief if not love?
Anyways, thanks for that. I cried a lot. Moving on. So we learn, of course, now Wanda's parents are dead. Pietro has died. We didn't have to go and relive that because we saw that in a movie. Now we see this tender moment with Vision, sort of the budding of their romance. And then we move on to where Wanda is basically storming into Sword. So this moves forward in time, and this is after the blip. So Wanda blipped, and 5 years passed, and now she's back. And when she comes back, Vision's body is not there. And so what we do know for a fact is that that Sword footage that Hayward showed was indeed doctored. I feel vindicated, thank you. Anyway, so Wanda storms in there, and she's like, I know he's here, I just want to bury him, like, please. They let her in, she talks to Hayward, and of course, as we've been known, Hayward sucks. And basically, he has rendered Vision to nothingness, to just vibranium. And she's like, listen, I don't want anything. I just want to bury him. I'm his next of kin, which is so sad. And, Hayward's like, I can't let you walk out of this place with that much vibranium. It costs a lot of money. And, we see this very, shocking picture of Vision being sort of torn apart. And, of course, he no longer has the Mind Stone. So he's just sort of lifeless, and Wanda breaks through the glass, sort of jumps down to the first floor, and we see this very sad scene where she's like,
I can't feel you.
what? So sad, of course, referencing when after Age of Ultron, Vision is concerned that he may have some of Ultron inside of him, and so, Wanda uses her powers to check it, and she's like, I just feel you. And then, of course, there's that same sort of verbiage when she has to kill him, just right in the feels. Right in the feels. But she didn't storm in there and steal Vision's body, right? She went in there and asked for him because she is his next of kin, and when she realized there was none of Vision left, that because of the Mind Stone, his personality and his soul, for lack of a better term, was no longer there, she left. She got into her car, and with a little note from Vision, she drives to Westview, New Jersey. And that's something else we know. Westview, New Jersey is actually a real place. In the beginning of the show, they said it was like not a real place, but it really is. And we see that note from Vision is actually a deed, and he had bought a plot for them to build a house together to grow old in.
I know what's about to happen, and I'm already sad.
So we also learn that Wanda's grief and her inability to control that created the hex. I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I'm like Wanda levels of not okay. So she appears to be the sole creator of the hex, and she sort of did that accidentally. And that's because, we've never seen Wanda control her powers in a substantial way, right? Every time her emotions get involved, she seems to sort of just go awry. Like she can't seem to like zero in her powers the way that maybe she hopes she can. I think the most effective use of her powers that we saw that was intentional is when she expanded the hex to save Vision. But otherwise, we've seen her time and time again. When her emotions are heightened, her power goes on the fritz, right? And that's exactly what happened here. She was just overwhelmed with grief. She's alone, and she just created Westview. And to her eternal credit, I still maintain that Wanda is an extremely good character, extremely good person. She gave, if you notice, everybody the life that she thought that they wanted, right? So we see the neighbor posting a flyer about learn piano lessons, and later in one of the episodes we see him playing piano. And we see the woman who was married to Vision's boss in the first episode, we see her sitting alone, and so presumably looking kind of sad, like maybe she had lost her loved one. So she gives her a married life, right? And then, which I think is so funny, you see the delivery guy, and he's still a delivery guy. He must be the happiest guy on earth. But I just thought that was really sweet. And in terms of sweet things in Westview, get ready for the feels, y'all. The last memory that Wanda has of her family together is her parents sitting lovingly on the couch with one another. And so in almost every episode, her and Vision sit on the couch together in front of the TV. It's too much for me. It's too much for me. I'm a fragile woman. I think you should know that about me. All right. So we also learn, that's not the end of it. We learn two more extremely important things that will influence what goes on in the next episode, of course. We learn that Wanda is the Scarlet Witch, right? Agatha talks about how the Scarlet Witch is this thing of myth, and, she can create this, like she can do spontaneous creation where she creates something out of nothing. And when we see Wanda create Westview, we see her recreate Vision, right? We see him sort of come to life in this sort of yellow-looking power, indicative of the Mind Stone, and they share this connection through the Mind Stone, right? The Mind Stone unlocked Wanda's powers, and also it created Vision to be who he is. So I think that's why she was able to recreate Vision, like a true recreation of him, even though he only exists in Westview and seems to sort of fall apart outside of Westview, as we witnessed in the previous episodes. So we know he's probably not coming out of the hex with her. Anyway, we'll speculate more later. But we have to talk a little bit about what goes on in the comics and why it's such a big deal that she is named the Scarlet Witch, right? And in order to do that, we have to talk about Retcon. And if you don't read comics, you might not know what that means. It stands for retroactive continuity. And basically, when an author picks up a character and they want to leave a mark on that character, they change their entire backstory and just pretend like it's been that way for the entire time. Welcome to reading comics. It can be a little frustrating. At the time, the backstory of the twins, it was understood that they were the children of two Romany people. And then basically they had grew up on this place called Wanda Mountain in Transia. And later on, Django, the father of the twins, kidnaps Wanda, takes her back to Wanda Mountain where she is possessed by this demon. It's fine. We have Magneto around the same time looking for his estranged wife named Magda. And this is in the 70s. We've progressed some years in comic time. And basically he finds out that the twins are his kids. And this retcon happens in 1979. So now we know that Magneto is the parent of both Wanda and Pietro. Fast forward to 2014. So basically, long story short, Wanda accidentally gets turned into an evil version of herself and she wants to punish her bloodline. And so she hexes them. And it only works on Pietro because come to find out, Magneto isn't related to them. And a lot of comics fans were upset about this because at the time there was sort of this embroiled battle between Fox and Marvel for the rights to the mutants, right? And we sort of know all about this and that Marvel just recently obtained the rights to mutants. And so people felt like, you know, the movie franchises were changing what was going on in the comics and that's why it was happening. And whether or not that was true, comics fans were mad because they felt like that's what was happening, right? And so basically it was that actually their normie parents, their Romany parents were their parents, and Wanda was the Scarlet Witch through a bloodline. Basically she came from a line of very, very powerful witches and it was her birthright to become the Scarlet Witch. And that's why the title, The Scarlet Witch, is so important. And that's kind of also why I didn't really key into this before because I don't like the retcon. I like the idea that the twins are Magneto's kids, and I don't like most retcons in general. Like, I understand why they happen. Tons of different people write the same characters over and over and over, but I just think it negates a lot of really rich storytelling and rich backstory for a lot of characters that I particularly like. So, kind of a bummer. I understand why the MCU did it. Their hands were sort of tied. They didn't have the rights to the mutants. They didn't have the rights to Magneto, and it was just like a whole thing. But that's why the title of Scarlet Witch is such a big deal. And that's why she sees that witch that sort of has that headdress. And it's such a big deal when she sees her in the Mind Stone. And you could argue that that's her in the future, or you could argue that that's someone from her past, the previous Scarlet Witch, right? Pretty interesting and also lengthy. I'm sorry. Anyway, the last thing that we know for sure is that Hayward was able to recreate Vision from Vision's parts. Kind of. White Vision.
Everything hurts and my life is meaningless, and also, I heard there's a mid-credit scene, so I'm gonna wait for that. I know what it is already, and I have a lot of theories for you about that, but it's gonna take some comics explaining. Boy, my face is wrecked, huh?
So basically, in 1985, Vision had this storyline like every powerful superhero does, where he thinks that he can use his powers to make the world a better place. And by doing that, Vision taps into all of these computers of all of these different countries' governments and basically gets all of their secrets so he can know if like war is going to happen or like whatever, you know what I mean? He can just use his powers to make the world a better place. Flash forward a few years into the 90s and another author brings that storyline back. However, that author then says that a bunch of government officials come together to stop and dismantle Vision, and in that process they basically like kill his spirit, like the Vision portion of Vision, while they also disassemble his body. Wanda, of course, is super upset. And for some reason, there's no backup of Vision's consciousness. It's just gone. So the Avengers work as hard as they can to sort of recreate Vision, but his body is so damaged that he can no longer hold the red pigment, which is why he's so white looking. And also, they put as much into him as they could, his memories and all of those things, but they couldn't give him his feeling back. So when he comes back as White Vision, he knows who Wanda is, he knows who the boys are, but he can't feel anything for them. And it becomes this very dramatic thing, and they end up getting a divorce, and it's very sad. And so I think White Vision is gonna bring some emotional pain, but we'll speculate that a little bit more in this next section called What We Think We Know. Speculate wildly with me. First and foremost, I speculate that, of course, Agatha is not our main bad guy. I'm not even sure she's a bad guy at all. It's not great that she's holding the boys hostage. and she killed a dog. It was a fake dog, but it was still a dog, and she killed them. Bummer. But she's more of a means to an end gal, right? She's selfish, and she wants what she wants, but an evil person that does not necessarily make, at least not in superhero world, right? Like, an evil person is somebody who kidnaps people in real life, but we're talking comics and fiction here, and people do worse things. Some of our favorite characters are literal mass murderers. I'm looking at you, Bucky Barnes, and I think also kind of Wanda. I don't think that she's the main bad guy. It's been revealed that she's extremely powerful, and of course she's going to be a really big player in what's going on in the future and what's going on, of course, with Wanda right now. But I think she just wants to know how Wanda's so powerful, and she wants that power for herself. Also, she's given everything to Wanda. Every time Wanda needed something in Westview, she gave it to her. And even though it was painful and terrible and probably for selfish means, Agatha walked Wanda through all of her trauma so she could work through it and understand why she was where she was, right? And that's a bigger gift to Wanda than 10 years of Marvel films ever gave to her. I said it and I meant it. So we know that Agatha is messing around in alternate realities already, or at least we can assume so because of Pietro, right? She wasn't able to necromancy real Pietro back, so she had to get a different one, so she got one from a different reality, or so it seems. And so my theory is that she may be the one who messes up and creates the multiverse of madness, right? I still hold on to the theory that Wanda's going to have like a super big meltdown, and that's kind of why, but I think Agatha has definitely opened the door, right? That being said, as we're speaking of alternate realities, something just doesn't add up here, right? Spider-Man Far From Home took place 8 months after the blip, and WandaVision takes place almost immediately after the blip, like when they come back. So it's been 5 years and they come right back, and 8 months down the road, we're just pretending like this didn't happen, like the whole world didn't know about Wanda Maximoff, an Avenger, just like losing her mind and creating this false reality and this weird big red thing around a city. Like, we're just gonna pretend that didn't happen. Another Avenger doesn't know that. Now, I know Peter Parker's in high school and he's got his own stuff going on, and also he was in a different country, but it's just like, it seems negligent that they wouldn't know. And so I hypothesize that maybe they're already existing in an alternate reality, and that's why this show ties in with the next Spider-Man film and the Doctor Strange film, because they're gonna have to go get Pete out of this alternate reality. And I have one shred of evidence for that. And that one shred of evidence is J. Jonah Jameson. In Far From Home, we see J. Jonah Jameson from the Tobey Maguire set of Spider-Man movies, which is to suggest, if we follow the logic that's been put in front of us, that he's from a different reality. And how did he get into Peter's? Our Peter. You know, Tom Holland Peter. I don't know. It's just a theory. But I also theorize that if that's true, or that we can maybe assume that that's true, then what's going on with Falcon and Winter Soldier? Is that in a different reality too? Or are they just going to pretend like this didn't happen? They didn't know. They just lost track of Wanda. They're like, it's fine. She's fine. What? Anyway. So let's go back to Agatha. If not Agatha as our big baddie, Dottie? Do you remember Dottie? Do you remember when Agatha said Dottie was the key to Westview, and then we saw Agatha's book in her lair and it had keys on it? Don't tell me that that's a coincidence. Don't tell me that that's a coincidence. We haven't seen her again. She was made to be such a big deal. And also, the actress who plays Dottie is in this show because not because she's a good actress, I'm sure, but also she has a connection, so she's worked with the writer before on a different project, and the writer wanted to bring her on into this project. And just to make her like a nobody character that we see once or twice? Maybe. That's possible. I just think there's more there. And my other assumption is it's not Mephisto. I don't think it's Mephisto. There's so much going on right now. There's White Vision, there's the Scarlet Witch revelation, there's possible Dottie-Dottiness, there's kidnapped children, there's Agatha Harkness. We haven't even talked about what's going on with Monica and Pietro and Darcy and fake Wanda made Vision. There's too much going on for them to be like, hello, here's a demon in the last episode, I think. Man, if they do it and they find a way to pull it off, I will be shocked. Shocked. So this is a little bit of a future projection, but I think that Wanda will study under Doctor Strange to learn how to get her power under control, right? She's super powerful like we can't even imagine, and so is Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is literally thousands of years old with his use of the Time Stone that he no longer has, and he's been studying magic for so long, and he is the Sorcerer Supreme. So I think that he's gonna help Wanda get her magic under control, and I would love to see that because Wanda needs a friend right now. I mean, I think she's gonna have Monica and Darcy and Jimmy after this is all over, and hopefully still her children, but she needs somebody who, like, gets what's going on, understands. And this is literally half a thought for my one remaining brain cell. Hex. The word hex, right? So there have been hints dropped about hex for so long, right? So Darcy calls it the hex. We keep seeing these little honeycomb looking things around, and the shape of the hex is hexagonal. That's why it's called the hex, of course. But the first piece of magic that Wanda uses is a probability hex, not a probability charm, not a probability, I don't know, whatever other word there is for magic stuff. It has to be something, right? It has to be something. I haven't figured out what yet, but just know that I took two words that are the same. Alright. I think we're gonna see some viz on viz action, and by that I mean I think Wanda's recreated Vision is going to show up where Wanda is. Of course, we saw him not last episode, but the episode before, sort of get out of that van where he was with Darcy, and then he's like, I gotta go to Wanda, and he's gonna find Wanda, and Agatha's there, and the kids are in trouble, and everything's going on. But of course, we're seeing White Vision come out from that end credit scene. And so I think they're going to have to fight. And the reason why I think they're going to have to fight is because Wanda will know that that Vision was created from Vision's body. White Vision was created from actual Vision's body. I don't think she's going to have the heart to fight it. I don't. She's already in shambles as it is. She's not holding on to things very well. And I think that will just truly push her over the edge. And another unfortunate prediction that I have is that we're going to lose Wanda's created Vision, right? I think he's going to die at the hands of White Vision, and it's going to cause her some serious trauma, as if she needs more, right? And I think, you know, if we don't lose him to the fight, he's not making it out of the hex. We saw him try and crawl out, right? Like, if the hex falls and he doesn't have to walk through it, would he be okay? It doesn't seem like it, though, because it seemed like he started to deteriorate when he was on the other side. So I think he will sacrifice himself for her. Again, this is a little out there, right? But I think that they're going to need Loki in order to bring the real Vision back, right? So the reason why White Vision is so problematic is because he doesn't have his feelings, because he doesn't have the Mind Stone, right? Wanda has recreated a Mind Stone within Vision. We've seen it. I don't know what's going to happen with that, if that will also deteriorate once he's outside the hex, or if he dies, or whatever is going to happen. But right now, we saw Loki grab the Tesseract, which is the Space Stone. And we know that in the Loki show, it looks like he's getting taken in by the Time Variance Authority for traveling through time and space illegally. And we saw him in the trailer in different historical settings, right? We saw him as D.B. Cooper, which I really loved. So we know that he's going through different time through space, right? So they've given the Space Stone the ability to travel through time, which seems like a weird plot hole to me, but it's fine. Doctor Strange no longer has the Time Stone, so he can't see in the future, and he can't create time loops like he did to fight that one bad guy whose name escapes me. I'll put it right here, because I can never say it right anyway. Nomaramdu or something like that. All right, not even close. So I think that Doctor Strange and Wanda are going to have to go and collect Loki, and it's just going to be a ragtag bunch of Marvel magic users, which I would love. And they do appear in the comics together sometimes because they are known as, like, the Magical Three, right? So I think they're going to need Loki and his ability to travel through space, but that's just me being real hopeful for some kind of crossover. And we heard recently that some of these shows could get a second season. They don't know. Of course, they're just saying stuff to say stuff because fans want to know, but could be interesting. I think that the kids make it out of Westview with Wanda. I've said this before. I believe that they're setting up for the Young Avengers, but this is good news for Wanda, of course, that she won't be totally alone. She'll have a piece of Vision, too, because that's their kids, and sad. And I think that Doctor Strange will be coming in this episode to kick butt. Please, God, I heard that we were going to get Benedict Cumberbatch on American television, and I have not seen Benedict Cumberbatch on American television. And like I said, if he shows up for 5 minutes at the end of that episode, I'm going to rage. But there's a possibility that he just pops in to knock Wanda out, and that's where it ends, because it's going to pick up in the Multiverse of Madness, and that would drive me nuts. Right? So in the comics, when Wanda has a huge meltdown in Avengers Disassembled, and she accidentally kills 3 of her fellow Avengers, including Vision. In the comics, of course, everybody comes back to life, it's fine. Doctor Strange, the only way that he can help is by putting her basically into a coma. She's too powerful. So we might be looking forward to that. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it, but you know what I mean. We might have that in store for us. And sadly, Wanda, I don't know what that means for the Hex or Agatha or anything like that. I expect that Agatha is going to escape in a puff of smoke and we'll see her again at some point, right? It'd be interesting if she popped up in the Loki show. I don't know if she'll pop up in the Falcon and Winter Soldier. That seems more of like a fighting Nazis kind of situation, right? But who knows? But I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Doctor Strange to show up with his questionable facial hair. Questionable facial hair. Alright, look. That's all my wild conspiracy theories. It's not all my wild conspiracy theories, but I cannot make this video like super long. If you want to know more, you hit me up on Twitter, alright? I've already put it up here. Here it is again. I want to talk to you about what's going on. So the last portion of this video is questions that we have, right? There's one episode of WandaVision left. There's one episode of WandaVision left. And I have so many questions. So let's get started. I know you have questions too. Maybe we have the same ones. Let's find out. So my first question is, where the hell is everyone? Where are they? I know that Steve went into the future and he said, F this, I'm going to be selfish and I'm taking my life the way I want it, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go kiss a girl that I promised to kiss one time. All right, you 90-year-old virgin, I get it. Oh, and you made out with her niece, you weirdo. Let's say Cap isn't in play. Where's Clint? Remember, Clint rescued her in Captain America Civil War from the compound and she had to fight Vision and like shove him through several floors and then they ran out and they fought together. And then in the funeral scene of Tony Stark, you know, you see him comforting her. They have a great relationship in the comics. The twins and Clint are great. They're hysterical. I love them. Where is everyone for Wanda? They just let her go. They let her go knowing full well the last time something terrible happened to her when her parents died, she joined Hydra. And then she joined Ultron. And they watched her wreak such havoc with her emotions and her powers. And they were just like, she's fine. And not only that, but like, who let Vision's body go to Sword? Right? They didn't think of Vision as just like a robot. The entire reason why they were fighting off Thanos' army in Wakanda was to try and buy time for Shuri to sort of be able to let Vision have consciousness outside of the Mind Stone. So they could destroy the Mind Stone and keep Vision. They all sacrificed so much for him and for Wanda. And they think of him as a friend, a coworker, a family member. And they just like let him. Where are they? Who is the real villain here? Is it Hayward? Is it White Vision? Is it Agatha? Is it Dottie? Is it Mephisto? Is it Ralph? Is it the innocuous delivery man? I don't know. Is Dottie a bad guy? Is she nobody? Is she somebody? Is she a good guy? I have suspicions about her. Who's the witness protection person that Jimmy Woo was talking about all the way in episode whatever it was, 2 or 3 or something like that? Who is that? Why would they just so casually mention that if it wasn't worth something? We're never gonna learn that. I hope it's a delivery guy. I love the delivery guy. Will Doctor Strange zonk Wanda? And by zonk, I mean put her to sleep to save her and the world and everything else. It happens, like I said, in the comics. I think it's a pretty viable solution to where we're headed, which I think is like an absolute just meltdown on every level from everybody, from Vision, from Wanda, from Monica, from Agatha, from the boys. It's going down in Westview, I tell you what. So will Doctor Strange come to the rescue in that way? I don't know. Possible, I guess. And my last question, can I go into Westview and kick a fictional character's butt because I hate Hayward and I want to punch him. I want to punch him. He's the worst. As you can see, I have very many feelings about what's going on. Like I said, Wanda Maximoff is my favorite Marvel character, so I feel all these feelings about her. And I'm really, really loving this show so far. It has come so far from the first episode where it was sort of the I Love Lucy-ish, Dick Van Dyke-ish sort of situation of a sitcom with a little Hitchcockian air to it. We have come a long way, and it's so interesting. I thought it was just really compelling storytelling and just an interesting way to sort of work through time, and also a really compelling story about grief. You know, I think that scene with Vision and Wanda inside of the Avengers compound is just such a good look at grief. And though it was just a brief moment, when Wanda sees the door to Hydra, she says, I don't want to go in there. I think anybody who's experienced any kind of trauma, like, felt that. And I think that's part of the show's success so far. is that it is doing a good job of making these superheroes very human and very relatable and understandable, and it gives me hope about the rest of the shows that are coming out this year, that Disney's doing great work for their television shows, and I'm excited for the movies too. That's all I have for you this week. It was a lot. I want to hear what you guys are thinking about WandaVision. Are you super excited for the last episode? Are you nervous? What are all your questions, your conspiracy theories? I just want to thank you so much for sticking through this, what I have to assume is a long video. Also with clips of me just straight up ugly crying. So thank you so much for that. I've been loving going through all these WandaVision episodes with you guys. I love to hear your feedback. I'm getting texts and stuff from my parents and my friends talking about it with me, and I just think it's such a great way to engage with your nerd friends. I will be continuing this through Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then of course through Loki. So that's my year booked up. How about yours? I think I said that last week. I'm tired. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys. I cannot stress that enough. And I will see you guys next week. Same-ish time, same place. And until then, this has been Nerd News with Destiny.